And welcome back to the Overdog Podcast. Georgia, 24-14 over South Carolina. A victory, not the exclamation point that maybe some of us thought that it was going to be. Most of us thought it was going to be 27.5 points. I put some money on that. Around, Thursday or Friday, I started getting a feeling like, maybe I should switch that bet. I don't know why. I just didn't have a great feeling about Georgia coming out and dominating for whatever reason. They hadn't looked as sharp as I expected them to in the first few games, but nonetheless, 24-14, a 10-point victory that maybe could have been a little bit more. I think if Georgia had been somewhat more aggressive in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, if they had thrown the ball a little bit more, instead of just trying to milk the clock, it probably could have been more than that. But not the 27.5-point victory that was expected. And Dogs were down 14-3 at half. As you know, if you watch the game, the offense looked discombobulated. I would prefer if in the future they bobulate themselves so that they, I don't know what the deal was. It was not clicking. It did not look like a team that is coming off of back-to-back national championships. The O-line struggled. We had some injuries. Amarius Mims got hurt. I do want to address something with the offense, though. First, of course, the two gentlemen sitting next to me. This is actually the first game I attended because I don't attend G5 and FCS games because it's a waste of my time, and it's a waste of your time, too. But the two gentlemen sitting next to me, they're fans, whatever. But it was fire Bobo. Bobo's an idiot. And I'm not there, but I have been fairly outspoken, not necessarily on this show because this is only the second episode, but I've been pretty outspoken about I'm not convinced that Mike Bobo was some kind of slam dunk offensive coordinator hire. I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to get us back to where Todd Monken had the offense. But I'm cautiously optimistic. I trust Kirby to make the right decisions, and if it doesn't work out, I trust Kirby to make the changes necessary. But so we all get the fire Mike Bobo. That's annoying. It's premature. It seems premature. But there's something else that annoys me. The rebuttal to that is, and I've seen this on different boards and sites, the rebuttal is, well, you've never coached at that level, so how would you know? Which is not a great rebuttal. It's not a smart thing to say because my first thought is, well, have you coached at that level? Would you know? You would have to make the case that you were qualified to say that it's good, and you just made the case against yourself by asking the other person if they've coached at that level, unless you have coached at that level, which you probably have not. I always operate under the pretense that blame or credit starts at the top and goes down. At Georgia, it starts with Kirby Smart. If the offense isn't working, if it's not doing what it's supposed to do, that starts with Kirby. And I guarantee you, he's not sitting there watching film of the offense. I'm sure he watches the offensive film, but I know Kirby's a defensive coach. He's not watching the offensive film of the first half and saying, that's a great job, guys. That's exactly what we wanted. No, he's not happy with 3 points in the first half. It's bad. That was bad offensive football in the first half. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. There's no argument, okay? After Kirby, the offense is on Mike Bobo. He is the offensive coordinator. Really, he has probably a little more on his shoulders than the defensive coordinators, which are Will Muschamp and Glenn Schumann, because Kirby is a defensive coach. So Mike Bobo has more of the impetus on him to make sure that the offense is working right. He's been an offensive coordinator for a long time. And if it's not working, that's on him. Okay, and I don't have to know anything about football to know 3 points in the first half by the number one team against an unranked South Carolina team is bad. It's not good. Okay? That doesn't mean we're firing Bobo after the third game, but the offense, you know, the first couple of games, you got Ball State, you got UT Martin, and it's just kind of, you sort of throw that out the window. You don't want to take too much away from those games because those are guaranteed wins. They're boring. They're not entertaining. I don't think any FBS team should be playing FCS teams. That's just my opinion. We can talk about that later. But ultimately, I don't think it's the responsibility of the season ticket holder at an SEC school to fund an athletic department of a FBS, or pardon me, a G5 or FCS school that they don't care about. That's where it begins and ends with me. So I don't care about those games, but you don't take too much away from them. But with South Carolina, 3 points in the first half was not good. 24 points total for the game is not great. And you do love the way that the offense, and I'm not here to dump on Mike Bobo for the offense. I did like the turnaround at halftime. Maybe they turned a corner at halftime. Maybe this will end up being good for Georgia. But I just want to move on from blaming the players. That's stupid, because who coaches the players? Who decides which players play? Who is drawing up plays for the players that are in the game? It's the offensive coordinator. It all comes back on the coach, all of it. Now, you could say, well, Mike Bobo didn't recruit any of these players, and that's certainly a point you could make. If you want to make the case that Georgia doesn't have the personnel or the depth to score more than 3 points against South Carolina, then be my guest, buddy. It's not a strong case, but you could definitely try to make it. And look, Georgia has some injuries. I don't think that this team is on a trajectory to go 6-6. I don't think it's going to be a bad season. I was pretty disappointed in the schedule coming into the season, but I think for the first time maybe ever, I'm at least somewhat appreciative of an easy schedule, somewhat appreciative of a somewhat boring schedule, because I think this team needs that to ease Carson Beck into being the starting quarterback. But I'll be honest with you, I would not have been shocked, and I'm not saying this should have happened, but at halftime I'm thinking, are they going to switch quarterbacks? That was an abysmal half. I mean, it was embarrassing. I'm not saying it's all on Carson. The offensive line did not look good. Again, that comes back on Stacy Searles. I mean, we got nothing but blue chip guys out there, and they weren't getting the job done. Carson got sacked a couple of times. In my opinion, both times is because he was holding the ball too long. You got to get rid of it. Even if there's nobody open, you got to throw the ball away. There's time to work on that. We've got UAB coming to town. Ask me if I'm going to that game. I'm not going to that game. I will watch it because I do think this team makes those games interesting, but please stop making excuses for coaches. Please stop making excuses for the people in charge of the offense. If it's not going well, it is their fault. That doesn't mean we should fire them necessarily, but sometimes it does mean that. And I'm not saying that it means that in this case, but I know you think you sound smarter than the people who are saying fire Bobo when you blame the players, but you don't. So let's just stop with that. Let's be smarter fans. I will say though, circling back around, that was really negative, and I don't want to be a source of negativity here. I've been accused of being a constant source of negativity, and I don't want to be that. I want to be positive. I want to highlight the positives. Beck, in the first half, was 13 of 18 for 98 yards. That is a surprising number for me. I want to make some comparisons here. I'm just throwing them. I just figured this up before the game, and this is probably not even scientific. Josh Hansher and Graham Coffey, if and when they see this, may want to fight me, because what I did is I went to the college football stats page, the one with the little yellow flag. I want to give them credit. I think it's Sports Reference. And I took the first 3 games for Jacob Eason, Jake Fromm, Stetson Bennett, and now Carson Beck, and I took their ratings, their it's not a QBR, it's just the rating, but I guess it would be a quarterback rating. And in fact, let me hover over it here. It's passing efficiency rating, and then there's a formula that I won't go into. And what I did was I just took the average of those numbers from the first 3 games. So Jacob Eason's first 3 games, and these were not, in fact, Carson Beck is the only one who started all 3. Eason, Fromm, and Bennett did not start their first game that they played in at Georgia. Eason was by design. They worked him in as a true freshman. Fromm came in as a true freshman when Eason got hurt against App State. And Stetson Bennett was inserted because the starter was playing poorly against Arkansas on the road. So that's probably the toughest spot to come in, would have been Arkansas on the road during 2020, which is the COVID year. Anyway, so Eason, his first 3 games were against UNC, neutral site in Atlanta, Nicholls State at home in Missouri, which was an away game. A big win, game-winning drive for Eason at the end of that game. But his total combined passer rating was 149. That's the lowest of anyone of these 4 that we're comparing. And I just picked these 3 guys because it was the last 4 quarterbacks at Georgia who were starters. Jake Fromm, his games were App State at home, Notre Dame on the road. That's probably the toughest game. Bennett probably came in at the toughest spot at Arkansas, but Notre Dame away was probably the toughest game, the best opponent of all the opponents here. And then Samford at home. So FCS, actually, yeah, Samford's FCS. I believe App State was FBS by then. But regardless, Fromm was 171.16 passer efficiency rating, and that's the highest by a wide margin. Now, Bennett came in against Arkansas. He had Auburn at home, and he also had Tennessee at home. Now, remember, that was the 2020 year where it was all SEC opponents. I don't think these teams had a lot of opt-outs between them, the teams that Georgia was playing. And if you remember, DeJuan Mathis started off against Arkansas, wasn't doing great. They inserted Bennett. He led us to a win. He was 151.7, which is slightly higher than Eason. And then Beck had his passer efficiency rating, the average of the first 3 games, which again, probably not the best way to do it, might not be scientific, but I just to give you an idea. It'll give you a ballpark idea. Beck's was 157. So you got Fromm up there at 171.176. Bennett and Beck are right there together. Beck's is a little higher though, 157 to Bennett's 151.7, so I guess 152. And then Eason's a little bit behind them at 149. Now, I will say Beck probably has had the easiest, all 3 home games. You had FCS to start off with, and then a G5 in Ball State, and then an unranked South Carolina that they played well against Georgia. And they showed it. I want to give South Carolina credit, too. They did show up to play. As much as I like to clown Shane Beamer, I think I was impressed with his team being prepared. I was also impressed with Spencer Rattler. That guy was taking shots and making great throws and making plays for his team. And I agree. I've heard other people say, I think Bud Elliott said that he thought Spencer Rattler would probably be the first SEC quarterback drafted in the upcoming draft, or I guess it would be the 2024 draft. And I agree with that. I thought he looked really good against a very talented Georgia defense. But I might be able to put those numbers on the screen. I'm still working on with the production team, which consists of me and no one else, about graphics. So, but Beck kind of fell right in the middle there. He's not nearly as good as Fromm, but he's a decent bit better than Eason, about 8 points better. So, but anyway, it's just 3 games. Beck is also, Eason and Fromm were both true freshmen starting. Bennett had been on the team for a few years. Obviously, we know his story. He's a walk-on, and Beck is a 4th-year player. He was actually there at that Arkansas game. I don't know if he traveled that week, but he probably did. I would have liked to see the offense, even though they got better in the second half, This is, I guess, kind of negative. You would have liked to have seen them drive the ball and ice the clock with 6 minutes left. Instead, we ended up punting back to South Carolina. Still up 10 points, but we end up punting back. And then they punt back to us, and then we still don't ice the clock. We still have to punt back to them with 4 minutes. Well, we got the ball with 4 minutes left, and we still had to punt back to them. Then Tyke Smith ends up getting the pick to end the game. But South Carolina converted multiple 3rd and longs, namely the first touchdown of the game to Juice Wells, who ends up going out injured, which definitely affected South Carolina's game plan because he's a good player. You got to have better tackling. You got to get off blocks. And they also were converting a lot of 3rd longs on those final drives there, 3rd and longs. It didn't end up translating to points for them, but that'll get you beat against a better team. And South Carolina is nowhere near the best team Georgia will play this year. I don't think. Maybe they're the best team or the second best team in the SEC East. I guess we'll see. But they haven't looked like it thus far this season. But they earned some respect on Saturday. I'll give them credit for that. I want to give some dog bone stickers. I missed the dog bone stickers. I wish that Kirby Smart would bring them back. I know that's a Rick De'Ara thing, but I thought they looked cool. Kind of differentiated the Georgia helmet, which is sort of looks like the Green Bay Packers helmet. We just painted it red. So I like the differentiation. You don't have to like it, but I do. Man, Daijun Edwards had a great game. In fact, let me pull him up here. 20 carries for 118 yards and a touchdown. A big-time season debut for him. Dylan Bell with 7 carries for 23 yards and a touchdown. He also contributed as a wide receiver with 1 catch for 16 yards. Cash Jones had a great day. He had only 1 reception for 11 yards, but he had the big touchdown run. He actually only had 2 carries, but the big touchdown run averaged 10 yards a carry in the game. Bowers, we didn't really run the offense through him. He still had 7 receptions for 54 yards. It's not the kind of production that we're used to out of him, but man, what a talent to have in your back pocket. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint is starting to emerge in this offense. We already know he can block. He's been making big blocks for years, but 6 receptions for 71 yards. And Lovett and Thomas, both of the transfers, Lovett in from Missouri, Thomas from Mississippi State, they started seeing touches. Dominique Lovett had 7 receptions for 56 yards. Thomas, he only had 2 receptions, but they were for 42 yards. They were also blocked really well, and I think that's, it has been said that Thomas was maybe having trouble ingratiating himself, inserting himself into the offense and kind of getting comfortable, but it looked like he got a lot better. Oscar Delp blocked a lot better. C.J. Smith had a catch. We didn't see a lot of Arian Smith. But listen, Georgia has the pieces. The running back depth is a concern. I think we'll see Dylan Bell there a lot more. I think Cash Jones will continue to get carries, but we're going to need Roderick Robinson and Kendall Milton, who I assume will sit out this coming week. We need them back. We need the other guys to stay healthy. Daijun Edwards actually took a weird hit on a tackle at one point in the second half that I thought did not look good for his knee. But he got back up and kept playing. So credit to him for that. But I did want to point those guys out. I thought that they were a big part, especially in the second half of that game. Daijun Edwards, he had a great game from start to finish, I thought. But and also honorable mention, Xavier Truss had a rough go of it early on at left guard, and then Amarius Mims got hurt, and they inserted him at right tackle, and I thought he mashed the outside edge of South Carolina's defense. So I want to give him credit for bowing his neck and popping out and switching positions and recovering from a rough start. I thought Dylan Fairchild looked pretty good. The offensive line in general, especially in the first half, did not look great. Ernest Green, I know he's talented. He's kind of struggling at left tackle. I think Graham mentioned this, but I was thinking the same thing on Sunday, talking about the offensive lineup. Maybe they look at Amarius Mims at left tackle if and when he comes back. Now he's got to have the surgery for the high ankle sprain. I forgot what they call it, some kind of the high wire or tightrope surgery. Yeah, something about a string. So he might not be back. It might be a month or so before we see him. But I wonder, Ernest Green, he's not terrible, but he is not a strength of this offense right now, and that is an important position. That's not one you can really be struggling at if you want to win a national championship. Onto the defense. In the first half, Georgia they were just having trouble getting home. They started off trying to rush three, understandably so, because South Carolina's line has looked really bad thus far up until this past Saturday. I actually thought they looked decent against Georgia's front, considering the talent disparity. They looked awful against North Carolina in their opener. They didn't look very good against Furman, but credit to South Carolina's offensive line. They did look a lot better against Georgia, especially in the first half. But Georgia they were not getting home on their rushes in the first half. Missing tackles on that first touchdown, you just can't have the amount of missed tackles that Georgia had. You got to get off blocks. You have to make plays. But I do want to be circling back around to the positive dog bone stickers. Tyke Smith, he was all over the field in the first half, and then he sealed the victory with that interception at the end there. Kamari Lassiter, I thought he really established himself. I'm not sure if he's a first-round player, but he established himself as a number one SEC corner, I thought, on Saturday. I thought he looked really good. There was the one play that some people thought could have maybe been pass interference. I disagreed with that. When I saw it in real time, I thought, oh, man, we might have got away with one. But when I watched the replay, he gets his hands up. He does eventually get his head around. I just thought it was great defense. A lot of the best defensive plays when you're in coverage are almost pass interference. By almost drawing a pass interference flag without actually doing it, that a lot of times means you did a great job in coverage. But Rattler, he earned my respect. They started stunting Mykel Williams. I was sitting in the end zone in the 300 section, so I could see right down the field. South Carolina is driving the ball away from us. They're backed up toward their goal line. They start stunning Mykel Williams to the inside. I guess they saw a matchup that they liked, and he started causing some problems. He did end up getting a sack on that drive, so he did come on. And honorable mention to Dan Jackson, who I thought struggled a little bit in the first half. Georgia missed Javon Bullard, there's no doubt about that, and hopefully we get him back by the Auburn game. But Dan Jackson, the recovery there to get that pick against South Carolina, which kind of brings him full circle, because the last time we saw him in 2022, he got a big pick against South Carolina and Spencer Rattler. So that's the second time he's picked off Spencer Rattler in his career. So credit to Dan Jackson for getting that done. Let me see what else I got here. Oh, special teams. It's got to be better. The first kickoff goes out of bounds. South Carolina starts off with great field position. Woodring is a true freshman, but he went 1 for 3. He missed kicks of, I believe, 28, which is a chip shot. You cannot miss that. And 43, excuse me. When you're the number one kicker in the country, you have the ability to make those kicks. That's just a mental issue that you have to overcome. And I understand, and I'm sure it's probably a big deal going from high school to the SEC, the defending national champions, back-to-back national champions. But that has got to be better. That can and will come back to bite you. And overall, I didn't walk away from that South Carolina game thinking, yeah, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted to see out of this game. I'm not sure that I believe that this version of Georgia right now is not a national championship team. Now, will they develop into that? The great thing about the 2023 season thus far is no one has really emerged as a clear-cut number one team that is going to definitely make the playoff. I think there's a lot of good teams out there. Texas has looked pretty good. They struggled with Wyoming on Saturday. Florida State almost lost to Boston College. I think they beat them by 2 points. Penn State has looked good. Ohio State has looked good, although they struggled some early on. Not this past Saturday, I don't think, but they struggled with prior opponents. Looked like Kyle McCord actually had a big day on Saturday. I don't have it in front of me. But those are just some teams off the top of my head. Also, obviously, Texas had what appears to be the biggest win in the country, but I don't know what to think about this Alabama team. I said all offseason, and I said it last episode, I did not expect Alabama to be as good or even close to as good as they were last year, because I didn't think they got better at either coordinator spot. I even thought at the time they may have gotten worse, and I think that they have gotten worse at both coordinator spots, and they definitely got worse at quarterback. I guess Jalen Milroe is going to retake the starting job after playing poorly against Texas. He's a great athlete, but yeah, it is going to be one of those years. A lot of people are predicting a 2007 type of finish where we saw a two-loss LSU team make the playoff and win the national championship, and that was back in the BCS when the only two teams got in. So we have not seen a two-win national champion since the playoffs started. And then Tennessee they've kind of fallen off my radar. This is another game that I was going to put money on it. I had already bet my betting bank, which is not a lot of money. I'm doing little small bets, and I try to spread them out. And I still owe the people's bets. I'm not a bet guy. I'm probably not. I don't have a model. I'm not gonna do a lot of sharing of picks. But I really had a feeling about Tennessee going down to Florida after they looked at Austin Peay, which was not great. And that is exactly what happened. They did not look good at Florida. Florida ran the ball all over them. They couldn't stop Etienne. I think his name's Trevor. I get the two Etiennes confused. I know one's in the NFL, played at Clemson. Etienne ran all over them. And I didn't watch the whole game. I haven't gone back and watched the replay. I don't think Milton was necessarily terrible, but he wasn't the game changer that you would have needed him to be. He was not the game changer that Tennessee has been telling us all offseason he was going to be. But the defense also just did not look good. So I'm not sure. Georgia's schedule looks even easier now, but we just struggled at home with South Carolina. UAB preview is this. If you lose to UAB, you suck. These are games that are, again, a waste of time. They're probably good. The coaches like them because they're an easy win. They can evaluate players, but they're a waste of time for me, the fan. I am going to watch it. I'm not going to go. I hope I can sell my tickets for what I paid for them, but I probably won't be able to because people don't care about watching UAB play Georgia. Trent Dilfer's the coach, though, and he won a Super Bowl with the Ravens as a quarterback. And he used to be on ESPN a lot. I guess he got bored of that and was like, let me go. No disrespect to UAB. I mean, listen, I have respect for all levels of sport. If for the kids who have Division I scholarships, that's great. Go play at UAB. They just should not be on the field with Georgia at any point. And, again, I'm going to watch the game. If we lose to them or if we even play close, that's a problem. Hopefully that will not happen. I think they got blown out this past weekend by somebody. And the injury list. The injury list is as long as a country day in June. I don't even have it in front of me, but there are some key injuries, some guys that we need to get back healthy, so Georgia's backups are going to get a lot of look. Forgive the jump cut. The camera decided that it had had enough, and we reached the limit. So we are going to thank you for joining us today on the second episode of the 2023 season for the Overdog Podcast. We hope you will join us again. Please like and subscribe. We've reached the point in the podcast where I remember to ask you to like and subscribe. And we will hopefully see you next week.